spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat. The human drama of athletic competition. This is ABC's Wide World of Sports.
Good afternoon. I'm Jim McKay, speaking to you from one of the most exciting spots at one of the most exciting moments in all the wide world of sports. Behind me, the cars are being wheeled onto the track for the start of the 51st running of the Indianapolis 500-mile Classic. The great Americans are here. Mario Andretti is on the pole. He averaged more than 168 miles an hour in qualification. And then there's Dan Gurney and Gordon Johncock alongside him. There's a great turbine car that you're going to be seeing in just a moment or two here. This is not a one-day story, however. The story of Indy started here more than a month ago. That was on April 29th, the first day of practice. More than 90 cars had indicated their desire to run in the race, and only 33 could. Cale Yarborough and George Snyder staged a little race of their own for the honor of being the first car on the track. This is the skeleton of an Indianapolis race car. Memorial Day, 1967, and now it's time for the 51st running of the great Indianapolis 500. One of the traditional ceremonies, the letting loose of these multicolored balloons into a dark and threatening Indiana sky this day. 33 cars, remember, set for the start. A blizzard of color over the racetrack. The final car is being wheeled into position, and there is the one that has become a bogeyman for many of the others. This is car number 40, the turbine car. It's been the talk of the racetrack ever since it opened for practice. The opinions of the drivers have varied about it. Some think it's unfair.
No, I don't think it's unfair at all. I think it's bloody clever. And full marks to Granatelli for doing it. I mean, it was a hell of a gamble, and it's paid off, and I think he deserves every credit. I'm only sorry that I didn't think of it first.
Well, it worries me a lot. I hope they will be able to beat it. I think that, in theory, they shouldn't have any engine trouble, and they may possibly have some gearbox trouble, as I hear.
You think it can be beaten?
Well, I think so. I'm sure going to try. I feel that the new cars that we built at home in Texas, the Coyotes, that myself and Joe, will run 500 miles all day real strong. So I think they're going to be hard to beat, those two cars.
Yes, well, if I don't win the race, I think there's no other car I would rather have winning the race than the gas turbine. I think it would upset a lot of people, which would be very amusing.
It's a real nice machine, but it's still a stove, you know.
All I want to do is just get down and get out of his way, because I think he's going to be long gone in about 2 laps.
I get the feeling that some of these drivers, and these are pretty hard fellows to shake, are a little spooked by this automobile. Is there kind of a psychological factor involved, do you think?
Well, I think a great deal of it is, yes, because of the fact that it is very quiet and has tremendous jump off the corners, but I really do. I think the car has a great possibility, and of course, if we have to have a little luck too. But I think we have a great chance.
Many people, including drivers, seem to be awarding the race ahead of time.
Well, that's just wishful thinking, because nobody's ever came here before with a new experimental car and won the race. In fact, they've been lucky to make the race, so I think a little bit optimistic myself.
What about the advantages? What are they?
Well, the fact that it has turbine power, which is generally reliable. The fact that it's 4-wheel drive, which makes the car handle better. The fact that it uses kerosene for fuel instead of gasoline or alcohol. And the fact that we could burn vodka, gin, or perfume or what have you if we wanted to. I mean, and the fact that it's just generally a safer car because it's stronger and built better.
Are there any drawbacks?
No, not that I know of. Maybe just a little jealousy.
One man who's made no secret of his feelings about the turbine car all month is the man on the pole, little Mario Andretti. Time for the drivers to get into the car. This must be a kind of a lonely moment, Roger.
Well, it certainly is. Of course, you have those butterflies in your stomach, and you will have until they say start your engines.
The man on the pole again, Andretti.
Fastest qualifying field in history, better than 164 miles per hour average. In the back row, the defending champion, Graham Hill. Next to him, Jochen Rindt of Austria. And rounding out the field, 43-year-old Al Miller, driving the car originally scheduled for Lorenzo Bandini, who tragically met his death a few weeks ago in Monte Carlo. Just moments now. First, remember, Dan Gurney is second. Third is A.J. Foyt. Fourth is Foyt's teammate, Joe Leonard. Fifth place is Al Unser. And in sixth place, the surprising rookie, Art Pollard. A good look at the turbine car now. See the driver on the right, engine on the left, and kind of a spine down the middle. The Granatelli brothers gathered around, and Andy could hardly contain himself. He's having such a good time.
Well, Jim, they look very confident. Pernella looks as though he's very relaxed and confident. I think perhaps they feel all they have to do is run those other laps and take the checkered flag for a win.
Gee, that sure is the face of the calmest man in the starting line, isn't it?
Well, their car performed so well yesterday, I think they feel extremely confident.
Okay, and now we're just about ready to go. And they get it back inside.
Of course, that car is parked in a rather precarious place at the moment.
And as we said, the yellow flag out, the car's going more slowly, but look out, that's Cale Yarborough, and he's spun.
And this presents a rather dangerous situation because the drivers tend to relax a little bit on the yellow flag, and they certainly aren't expecting a car right in the middle of the groove.
And there goes Cale right up the fence. I don't blame him.
I'd want to be out of that car myself. Oh, and there are some cars spinning.
This is Leroy Yarborough, no relation, and Roy Ruby up against the fence. Again, both drivers seem uninjured. Tremendous luck in this race with all the crashes and spins that have been going on today.
And, of course, that's what I predicted could happen.
That's right, Roger, and I think it's going to take a little while before that yellow flag is going to be lowered and the green flag waved again. Crashes and spins and a fantastically exciting Indianapolis 500. The Indianapolis 500 continues under near-perfect weather conditions. The car's going into the 130th lap. When they finish that lap, they will have gone 325 of the 500 miles. And the leader is still Parnelli Jones as they flash across that 1 yard of brick that recalls the days when this was, in fact, the brickyard, as they called it. In second place is A.J. Foyt. And in third place, only 1 lap behind now, is Jackie Stewart. Matter of fact, at the moment, Jackie's been trying to unlap himself on A.J. Foyt, and that's been quite a duel going on here.
Well, they certainly has been a duel all day long. He's driven a tremendous race to come from so far back.
He sure has, and here is the pit of Parnelli Jones as he comes in for his second pit stop of the day, and in all probability, his final one.
Yes, if everything goes well, this would be his last pit stop.
They seem to have gotten plenty of fuel in on that first kind of difficult and unorganized pit stop they had.
Yes, they have, and it looks as though they're pretty well organized this time, and perhaps taking a little more time.
A.J. Foyt, of course, takes the lead on this pit stop, and that's Jackie Stewart still trying to unlap himself, get on the same lap with the leaders.
And there goes Parnelli back to the races again.
28 seconds, a real fast stop, and we'll be back in a minute. We're moving toward the closing stages now of the Indianapolis 500. Parnelli Jones and that turbine car dominating the afternoon here, as it has since this race started actually yesterday. Remember, it was interrupted by rain, restarted today. There's Mario Andretti, one of a number of top drivers who are out of this race now. The sign given to Parnelli Jones that he's 35 seconds behind A.J. Foyt at the moment. However, he has a pit stop in hand. There you saw Rindt. There's Jimmy Clark, who's also out of the race. Jochen Rindt, you saw before, the young Austrian, also dropped out. Graham Hill, the defending champion, was forced to leave the race quite early. But in the pits of the Granatelli brothers, the turbine car, and Parnelli Jones, there is joy and anticipation of the finish of this race. The turbine has had no problems, except for a little altercation with Leroy Yarborough's car early in the race and a kind of a fouled-up pit stop. And right now, Jackie Stewart has become a great story as he tries to unlap himself on car number 14, A.J. Foyt. You saw people cheering for him there. Jackie has really developed a lot of fans in America since he first came over here last year and almost won the race. I talked to Jackie just before the race started yesterday.
It must be a long time since you've been starting in the next to last row of a motor race.
Yes, that's the simple answer. I can't ever remember doing this. But, of course, it's a bit of a challenge, isn't it? Starting almost last.
It sure is. Do you have a planned strategy? I mean, if you're going to go out fast or hang back or what?
Well, mainly to try and win. This is the strategy. And to try and get past all the other 30 cars that I've got to get up through. It's obviously going to be quite difficult. I've got no idea how I'm going to do it. I just hope that they're courteous towards me and wave me through.
You think that they'll do that? They'll just wave you right on through?
Well, my experience of American hospitality has been very nice. And I should think if they continue with this, their manners as well as they have been over the last month, I should think they'll move over very nicely for me.
The personable young Scot, Jackie Stewart, and of course American hospitality has had absolutely nothing to do with it, but Jackie has moved from 30th place to 3rd, an incredible achievement, isn't it, Roger?
Well, it certainly is almost unbelievable, as a matter of fact. However, other people have made great moves today, including Roger McCluskey, and here's Foyt making his second scheduled pit stop.
Right, and that will put Jackie Stewart, at least for a few moments, even closer to A.J. by the time A.J. finishes this stop. Jackie, however, will have to make a stop himself very shortly. Things seem to be going well down in the Foyt pits.
Seem very calm, and here comes Brunelli Jones through turn 3, across the short straightaway, turn 4, and heading for that starting line. Probably will get back in the lead before A.J. is able to leave the pits.
Well, that's right. He was 35 seconds behind, and in addition to the actual pit stop time, of course, they're slowing down coming in and reaccelerating going out, and Parnelli Jones has retaken the lead.
And there's A.J. getting ready to leave the pits and back to the race.
But it's still an automobile race. As you can see, the number of seconds is not that tremendous. Here's car number 98. That's interesting because that's Parnelli Jones' old number, and in fact his old car from last year being driven by Ronnie Duman this time.
Yes, and apparently he's experiencing some kind of trouble. However, look as though he's going to get back into the race. The engine is running. They're getting him a little start, and he'll be back out there.
Excuse me, here's a black flag, and that black flag is being given to Dan Gurney, who was so much a contender in the early going. However, he's had considerable problems, has been in and out of the pits, has been trailing and losing laps, and now they've told him, come on in, the afternoon is done for you. It's basically a safety measure, really, isn't it? And there's Roger McCluskey coming in. That's not a scheduled pit stop for him either.
No, it isn't, and they're not attempting to refuel the automobile, so apparently his problems are serious.
There's Gurney also into the pits under the orders of the starter. It looks very much as if McCluskey's going to be out. Well, there's a sign, as a matter of fact, to John Cock telling him the number 12, that's McCluskey, right now is being wheeled to the gasoline alley. He's out of the race. So is Gurney. Here's Dan.
What was the problem with the car, Dan?
We burned it. We had a jammed fuel valve, which I couldn't switch over to use the fuel. We used the fuel on the right side of the car first. I couldn't switch over to the left. I was wrestling this thing, and as I was going along, why all of a sudden it ran real lean. I think we got burned a valve. So I've been running on 7 cylinders.
And now here is more trouble out of the race course. That is Jackie Stewart down on the grass, and that can mean nothing but very bad trouble for him.
Well, he couldn't be out of fuel or anything. Probably he's blowing an engine. Of course, this is just like last year. He was, of course, leading last year when he had trouble, but this year he was running a very fine third position.
And I think this is almost the exact spot where he finally had to chuck it in, as the English said, last year.
Of course, last year he attempted to push the car into the pits.
That's right. Parnelli Jones, the leader again in the race, to restate that. A.J. Foyt in second place. The race goes on and is nearing its conclusion. Jackie Stewart walking to the pits. Back in a minute. 1967 Indianapolis 500 will soon be history. We're in the closing laps now, and Parnelli Jones has opened up a tremendous lead over second place A.J. Foyt. There you see it, Parnelli 53 seconds ahead, and in his pits they even have time for a little consolation to Jackie Stewart, who dropped out of the race a little while ago. There's another spin, a crash against the wall. It's Cale Yarborough again hitting the wall, and there is Mel Kenyon, car number 15, and Bud Tingelstad down in the infield. 3 cars involved this time. Again, it looks like the drivers are okay, all of them moving.
Certainly an amazing thing. I can't understand why so many spins and crashes. The track doesn't appear to be exceptionally oily.
Oh, there have been a lot of close battles, of course, going on back in the pack as the yellow flag comes out again. Hasn't affected the leader, however. Parnelli Jones well clear of that accident. Still maintaining his lead over A.J. Foyt. That turbine car breezing along with the breeze. Save fuel. Now and here to Foyt, Jones may pit. Now, what could those mean?
Well, actually, it's possible they are somewhat concerned about the amount of fuel he has. However, they don't look concerned. I suspect they want him just to slow down a little bit, take it easy, and save that automobile.
Looked like the Granatelli brothers were combing their hair for victory lane there.
And the green flag out once again with Jones almost a full lap ahead of Foyt.
And there's another spin, Roger. It's Gordon Johncock, who was riding in 5th place, the fellow who was on the front row at the beginning of the race.
And it looks as though he must have punctured his left rear tire, causing him to lose control. This will throw the yellow flag out again, and of course, this would seem to lock it up for Parnelli Jones.
It certainly would, particularly since it's even conceivable conceivable now that they could finish this race under a yellow flag because we're getting very close. That was A.J. Foyt going by, and Parnelli very close to him, almost lapping him with that 53-second lead. Under the yellow. And the crowd now just waiting for victory lane and all that goes with it.
Here comes Jones. Foyt went by just a little ahead, down the back straightaway. There's Foyt.
Let's see, Parnelli must be taking that save fuel sign seriously. He was a lot... He was a lot closer.
He ought to be coming by.
Parnelli Jones with this... Roger, I think something's wrong. Something has happened. Something has happened to the lead car. I don't know what it can be. Something's happened. Here he is.
Parnelli Jones is coasting, coming around the number 4 turn. Parnelli Jones is coasting to a stop, coming around the number 4 turn.
There's Granatelli.
Parnelli Jones is coasting, coming down.
Possible he could be out of fuel.
High confusion in the Granatelli pits. They didn't know whether to run or stay. Now they're running down to the car. There's Andy.
Certainly something you wouldn't have suspected.
A.J. Foyt just went past and saw it, and there he is waving to his pit crew. Unbelievable chaos here as the lead car, with a little more than 3 laps to go, has apparently dropped out of the race. Andy Granatelli suffering the most disappointing moment of his lifetime.
They don't seem to be pushing the car down to the pits. Apparently the trouble is more than just being out of fuel.
This car that had no difficulty all through the day, suddenly, without any warning, dropping out with 3.5 laps to go. And on the yellow flag.
That's unbelievable. There's Jones getting out, a very disgusted Jones, and there's the old 98, the car that he would have driven perhaps if it weren't for this car being pushed to the pits.
Strange coincidence there, too. But it looks like A.J. Foyt, and we better start talking about him, is going to be the winner here. And there is Parnelli trying to look as casual as possible, but you know how he's got to feel inside.
Certainly a very disappointing day for Parnelli Jones.
The white flag for A.J. Foyt. He had 2 laps to go before, but now all he has to do is negotiate each of these 4 turns one more time, and it's all over. A.J. Foyt will win his 3rd Indianapolis 500, a great comeback after last year's disappointing season for him.
Well, he drove a great race. He just stayed in there all day long, grit his teeth, and there's an accident in the front straightaway.
There's 2, 3, 4 cars. Where's Foyt? I don't know whether he can get through or not.
Hitting the wall, bouncing back across the straightaway.
Foyt's only got a couple 100 yards to go, but where is he? There he is!
He's going to get through.
A.J. Foyt will win the Indianapolis 500 in an incredible, thrilling finish. If just all those guys are all right, I think they're all out of their cars except the one. A.J. Foyt on a victory lap. And the red flag was dropped as soon as he was given the checkered flag, meaning that nobody else technically finishes the race except him. Of course, there will be placings. You saw Joe Leonard in number 4. He'll finish 3rd in the other car owned by A.J. Foyt. The trophy being moved down to victory lane as A.J. Foyt comes in there for the 3rd time in his racing career. I'm not sure that he can even believe this yet, Roger.
What a fantastic finish. Of course, there's Tony Holman in victory lane as A.J. rolls in. He knows where to go. He's been there before.
The wreath of carnations that had been waiting for Parnelli Jones up until just a couple of minutes ago, now on A.J. Foyt.
A very happy A.J. Foyt.
There's the traditional bottle of milk for the Indy winner.
That's
his wife in back of him. Yeah. A.J., before the race was restarted today, you said to me these words. You said the turbine will not finish. I said, why? You said the gearbox will break. That's what happened.
Well, I said, we was talking about the gearbox. I figured it'd go 100 laps, but after it went past 100 laps, it looked kind of hopeless. So I'm glad my prediction was right.
Our congratulations on one of the great courageous victories here at Indianapolis. You never gave up at any point in this race.
No, Jim. Our strategy was just run consistent all day long and try to stay up in the top 3 or 4 positions all day long and try to keep the leaders in sight, and that's what our plan was, and I think it paid off.
How in the world did you get through that accident at the top of the home stretch?
Well, for some reason, I just had a funny instinct about the last lap, and that's the reason, if you probably realize, I didn't close up behind the cars. When they accelerated, I just took off slow because I figured I had to race one if I could just get back around the starting line. And when I come off a 4-corner and seen the smoke, I couldn't believe my own eyes. So I just pulled down the inside and come to almost a complete stop and shifted to low gear and made sure nobody was coming and drove on through it. I just hope nobody was hurt too bad.
AJ, it's a great comeback story, a great story of courage, and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
AJ Foyt. And the word on the accident, by the way, is that nobody was hurt.